Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Afternoons, I guess. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and just about everywhere else at Hawk Blogger. And decided to do an afternoon show today because we had a great Real Hawk Talk last night. If you haven't had a chance to download and listen to that, I highly recommend it. We were laughing, had some fun on that episode. And also, I don't know about you, but I've been waiting to see what the injury report would be for today's Seahawks practice. And so I figured let's do a show after the injury report comes out and we can talk about the implications of that, as well as I've got some sound to play for you all from some press conferences today and some conversations I had with guys. I've also got some pretty cool news. I got a John Benton interview. I do. The offensive line coach for the Seahawks, as far as I know, the first John Benton interview in Seattle. And maybe he's been other places. And if he has, send me the links because I haven't been able to hear him talk to anybody here yet. But eager to talk to him, to share. I was eager to talk to him. I will be editing that interview later tonight. I'll be posting it for patrons over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. And then I'll play it for all of you probably on another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings, maybe after my time with Mike Sando tomorrow. So John Benton interview, got some really good stuff from him, and we'll share that coming up. So if you aren't already a Patreon member, now is as good a time as any to join. You get ad-free audio, you get some of these exclusives, you get access to the Discord channel, and you get verified over at hbtix.com, a great place to go to get Seahawks tickets from other Seahawks fans. All right. So let's get right to the news of the day. The Seahawks did practice. They did release their practice report, and there were some changes, some notable changes. Here is what we've learned. The Seahawks, Nick Emanwari, the rookie safety, who did kind of retweak his ankle during the game, but did come back and finish. He was a limited participant on Wednesday. He is now a full participant today. That is good news. Ernest Jones, the inside linebacker, went from did not practice to limited. That is also good news. Not great news, but good news. DeMarcus Lawrence, the edge who missed the last game, injured himself against Arizona, went from did not participate to full participant. That is very good news. Jarran Reed went from DNP to full. That was a non-injury related, just resting a vet kind of thing. So no big news there. And then the other two things, not so great. Julian Love stays as did not participate, and Devin Witherspoon stays as did not participate. So we'll talk about the implications there. The only other thing that I would say is noteworthy is that Tariq Woolen stayed a limited participant. So he is still in the concussion protocol. He is still going through the process. Don't know if that means he's going to play this week or not, but at least it seems like he is headed down the right track. So as far as Jacksonville goes, before we get to circle back to the Seahawks, no real changes there. My understanding is that Robert Hainsey, their center, unlikely to play this week. He was a limited participant in practice, so we will see. Again, that would mean Jonah Monheim, the rookie from USC, would start at center, and that's a pretty meaningful change. I was looking earlier today at ESPN's win rates, pass block, all those types of win rate stuff, and Robert Hainsey is a top 10 in he is top 10 in interior offensive line, I think, pass block win rate. Yeah, actually he's top 20, I should say. He's 20th in that regard. So that would be a bit of a loss. And then he does not show up on the – oh, no, sorry, I'm wrong. He is second right after Gray Zabel in run block win rate for interior offensive linemen. So, having him gone in this game would be meaningful. He is currently a limited participant. We will find out what goes on there. All right. So it is not the end of the road for Julian Love or Devin Witherspoon to play in this game against the Jaguars. Why am I saying that? Because Mike Macdonald said both of those guys, well, he said specifically Julian Love would be later in the week than either Witherspoon or DeMarcus Lawrence. He had previously bucketed DeMarcus Lawrence and Devin Witherspoon into a group he said he was hoping to practice midweek, and that Julian Love was after those guys. Well, probably not great news that Devin Witherspoon did not practice today. That does not necessarily indicate he's had any kind of setback, but it, for him to not even be limited, not great. Julian Love, I don't think he ever really expected, Mike Macdonald ever really expected Julian Love to practice before Friday, most likely. So we'll see what happens with that tomorrow. Both of those players happen to be guys that Mike Macdonald is comfortable playing in a game, even with limited practice time. So there is some chance. My best guess, based on what we've seen before, is that those guys will either be doubtful or out for this week. I think that's probably the best guess. That's going to put a serious highlight on Tariq Woolen. If he can't go as well, if he doesn't clear a concussion protocol, then you're back to basically the secondary that you ran out there last week. You're going to be talking about Ty Okada as your deep safety next to Kobe Bryant. You're going to be talking about potentially Nehemiah Pritchett, maybe Shaquille Griffin, depending on whether they pull him up from the practice squad, playing one of the corner spots, Josh Jobe as the other corner, Darian Kendrick as your nickel. Nicky Minwari would be there for big nickel. One of the slightly good news things here is that, the Jaguars tend to be a team that's going to put out some heavier personnel, but Brenton Strange, their best run blocker and leading receiver at tight end, is out. He's on IR. So maybe they'll go back to more 11 personnel kinds of things. That'll affect how much Nicky Minwari can be used, even though he can be used against 3 wide receiver sets. Primarily his best fit is when he's going to be going against a heavier tight end kind of personnel package. So that would be rough. Now, Ernest Jones, you better hope he can play, because if he can't, you're talking about Drake Thomas and Tyrese Knight likely playing those 2 positions. Maybe you'd get Patrick O'Connell up there to take that middle linebacker spot. But that would be a whole lot of, I don't know if inexperience is the best word, but you'd not be at your strength in the middle of the field. That wouldn't be ideal, obviously. So we'll see what comes. We'll see what comes with those different injuries and what changes, if anything, tomorrow. It is important that DeMarcus Lawrence is practicing fully. His participation in the run defense is going to be key this weekend with a team that is really committed to running the football, and he's been one of their best run defenders. So I think that's good news. And obviously Nicky Minwari being back to a full participant is good news. So I see someone in there. I've heard this from a couple people. Like, there's even a question earlier in the week to Mike Macdonald: can Nicky Minwari play deep safety? Mike Macdonald was coy about it, but his real answer was he can, but that's not how we're using him. Nicky Minwari has played I heard someone else say, like, should he play corner? Like, he could probably do a lot of things. Nicky Minwari played cornerback earlier in his career. He moved to safety when he got bigger. He's got some of those coverage skills still in him, which is part of what makes him really valuable. But you have to understand, he is a rookie who spent the entire training camp learning one very specific role as this big nickel. And they crafted this role specifically around his skill set and specifically around something that the defense needs that nobody else really can provide. It's not going to make a lot of sense to take him after he's played exactly one game in that role to then have to play a role he's never played in the NFL before, with rules that he hasn't had to learn, communication, responsibilities, reads, keys, everything changes. So no, I don't think they're going to move Nicky Minwari anywhere but where he is, because they want to put Nicky Manwari in a position to have the best possible impact and most likely to be successful. You're not going to just throw that on a rookie. Just keep in mind, Cam Chancellor had a very small role as a rookie safety. He was basically a goal line, short yardage, extra safety that they brought in. And that was it, and a special teams player. So you're just not going to see in most situations them put even more on the plate of a rookie coming in. So that's kind of the state of the injury situation. I think that, again, this is not the same offensive firepower that they faced against Tampa Bay. It is a similar offense. Liam Cohen was in Tampa Bay last year, and now he's here. So there are some similarities to what they run. And Jarran Reed kind of talked about that there's a chance for them to kind of go against the same defense or the same offense and, maybe correct some of the things that didn't go as well this past week. There were a few things that I thought were noteworthy in the press conferences with Jarran Reed and JSN. And so I wanted to share some of those. Before I do that, make sure you take a second to give the show a like, click subscribe. And again, go over to patreon.com/hawkblogger to sign up there, get access to ad-free audio and a bunch of other great stuff. Additionally, you know what? Like, people are still sleeping on the Seahawks. Sometimes I'm one of the people sleeping, and I thought you guys might have fun with this, the Manta sleep mask. Hey folks, I'm guessing you can see me, but I cannot see you because I am wearing the best sleep mask out there on the market, the Manta sleep mask. It is 100% blackout. I cannot see a thing. And one of the cool things with this model, this is the Manta Sound Sleep Mask. It's got these really cool Bluetooth speakers that adjust right over your ears, connects to your phone. You can play music, you can play white noise, whatever you like. There could be a 49ers fan right next to you. Doesn't matter. And let's face it, sometimes during the football season, you just need to recover. You need to take a nap. You need to block out the world. The Manta Sleep Mask is the best thing to do it. And if you use my code HAWKS, you will get 10% off your purchase over at Manta Sleep. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't look at other sleep masks. Manta Sleep is the best. Buy it. You won't regret it. I used it this morning. I used my Manta Sleep Mask this morning. I woke up, had a headache, needed to go back and take a nap after getting my kid off to school. It's amazing. Full blackout. I've used a bunch of sleep masks. I highly recommend it. Head over to Manta Sleep. You won't regret it. All right. We got a question, a super chat from Justin JJ says, a trade for Maxx Crosby. Is it possible? If so, how? Yeah, this keeps getting pushed around. Let's talk about it for a second. So first, let's look, first thing you got to look at is when you got a player for the other team, what's their contract situation? Maxx Crosby just signed a contract extension in March for 3 years, $106.5 million. And so he's in a situation where really, if he was to be traded, just to make sure it's clear, it looks like it's possible from a salary standpoint, like the Raiders could do it. Generally, when you sign a player to a new extension, they're pretty much untradeable, but the structure of this deal makes it so it's not out of the question that they would trade him. Here's the thing for me. Maxx Crosby is the most popular player on that roster for fans and probably in the locker room. He is a guy that is a leader on that team. You've got a team that's reeling, and you've got a new GM and a new coach. Trading away the heart and soul of your team, who is still a very good player, is probably a tough sell for the ownership and for a lot of other people. So maybe if they got completely bowled over by an offer, it's possible. I think a team like the 49ers might be the ones that would be more likely to be irresponsible in making a move like that than I think the Seahawks would. I think the Seahawks may not be able to afford to make a deal like that, given that they have some contracts that they're going to have to sign and extend people this offseason. So I think it's highly unlikely that Maxx Crosby is a guy that comes to Seattle. Obviously, they asked about Maxx Crosby back during the Geno Smith and DK Metcalf timeframe. They were going to trade both of those guys to the Raiders in exchange for Maxx Crosby. That got nixed. So, yeah, I don't think that that's a realistic outcome. So that's my general take. I've been wrong before, but that's my general take on the Maxx Crosby piece. The guys that I've kind of circled, and I think I've mentioned this at least on my, on Twitter before, I put out some names that I think are a little bit more realistic. I'll give you an example of some of those names here. So Will McDonald for the Jets. He is in, let me just make sure I'm not fibbing with y'all. I believe he is in the last year of his rookie deal he has 2026 would be the last year of his rookie deal. He's a first round pick, so he would have a 5th-year option, but he is definitely tradable. And he would cost something meaningful in return. That could be a place where if you're looking to trade a cornerback like Tariq Woolen, whether or not I think that's a good idea, that could be a place that could make some sense. Other guys that I think on the edge, Kayvon Thibodeau, we've talked about a lot for the Giants, who they've got Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, and it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to also pay Kayvon Thibodeau, who's going to be a free agent. Bradley Chubb for the Dolphins. This is a guy that's been a high draft pick. He's been a capable pass rusher. He's also dealt with a fair number of injuries. I think he's a better fit than Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips, I don't think is quite the run defender, the edge setter that Chubb is, but I also think I'm not sure that either of those guys are real difference makers. I think Carl Granderson is an interesting name personally. He plays for the Saints. He is more of a veteran, so a little bit older. He's 29, but he is under contract for really until 2027. So he's through the next 2 years after this on what's a reasonable salary. And this is a guy that right now, I think he has like 5 sacks on the year already. Let me just double check, make sure I'm not making things up. 4.5 sacks on the year, which is 4.5 sacks more than Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, and DeMarcus Lawrence combined. I also like the Granderson can go inside. He's flexible that way. I think he's an interesting name, and I think the Saints certainly have no need to keep almost anybody around. They'd be smart to take as many flyers on future things as possible. Trey Hendrickson's a guy that everyone's going to talk about. Sure. I mean, they could look into it. Just not sure that the Bengals are going to be a team to do it. And then the other guys that I think are worth asking about, Demario Davis, the inside linebacker from the Saints. He's 36 years old. He's got not much of a future there, but he's still a good player. I think he could be had for not very much. Jordan Brooks, the former Seahawks linebacker who plays for the Dolphins, I think he also is someone who could be potentially available, given that I think the Dolphins aren't going anywhere, and maybe John Schneider goes and calls on an old friend that I think generally he would have liked to have kept in Seattle in the first place and just wasn't able to manage it. So those are some names on the defensive side that I think are at least worth calling out. So let's get into some of the sound from Jarran Reed and from JSN. One of the things that I asked both of these guys about was this offense was really not playing very well when OTAs began. And you kind of could expect that because it was a new coordinator, new quarterback, new offensive line coach, new lots of things, like new receivers in a lot of cases, new tight ends. And so I asked Jarran Reed, what's your reaction? Like, to the way this offense is playing now versus how you saw it at the beginning of training camp. And here is what Jay Reed said. Really powerful.
No, I think I said this before in the previous interview. I had a feeling they were gonna be real good. The way they work, the way they attack the ball, the offensive coordinator is great. The offensive line coach is great. I think their mentality overall is great. I mean, I love to see it, man. Offense that could do that. They had our back last game. And, that's the way the season's gonna go. That's why we're a team for a reason. It takes all three phases. I tell them that all the time. It's just good to see them go out and make plays. It's actually makes us as a defense have to go out there and make sure we do our part as well to help the offense.
So I love that from Jay Reed, just talking about his expectations of that offense and that it didn't surprise him that they're playing as well as they're playing. I asked him, as a follow-up, you mentioned that the offensive line coach is doing a great job, John Benton. Why? Like, what makes it a great job? What is he doing that, from your perspective, is great? Here's what he said. What makes him great from your perspective?
I think it's the mentality that he teaches the guys and how he's coaching them. He's doing a very great job, man. And the guys are actually taking initiatives with inside themselves to ask questions, to really care about it, to be students of the game, and to want to be great, man. I think those guys all on the front, they're hungry, they're humble, and they work hard.
So that's not the first time we've heard it, and he kind of brought it up on his own about how they're humble and how they ask questions. So I asked him a little bit later, all right, so I mean, how common is that from your perspective that you have offensive linemen asking you for advice and that you guys are having this connection across the defensive line and the offensive line room? And here's what Jay Reed said about that. As much as this one?
Well, no, because I think just in the past few years, it's been an older line. A couple of guys who's been experienced, so they kind of like had their own style or deal. But this line is kind of young, and like I said, they're students of the game, man. They love to learn any chance they get, and we're a little bit on the older side on the defense. So whatever game we got to pour into them, stuff that we see, stuff that we change, or how that we see stuff from a defensive perspective that we can give to those guys and they can use it.
I thought that was great. I think it's great. I think it's all like really good news about what's going on with that offensive line room. I can't wait to share the John Benton interview that I had. There's some really, really great stuff in there, and we'll talk about that. I also asked Jarran right at the jump if he gave Byron Murphy any advice on being a new dad. So I talked to Byron in the locker room. I didn't record an interview, just congratulated him on having his first baby. This is what Jarran said about whether he gave Byron, his little protege, any advice on being a dad. Do you have any advice for him?
I got a lot of advice for him, but I'm happy for him, man. Told him welcome to fatherhood. Look, he's already strong, but it's different if y'all got kids. You get that dad strength.
All right. Hopefully, Jarran's not getting sick. We don't need anyone getting sick in the locker room, adding to that injury report. But yeah, congrats to Byron Murphy. Very cool. Happy for him and his wife. Sounds like everyone's doing well. And, they'll be getting home here pretty soon. So good stuff there. And then, JSN, it's always interesting, like these guys are having an opportunity to step into a void left, like when DK Metcalf went, and AJ Barner stepping into a void as well. Tyler Lockett, like there's voices that were pretty important for kind of being front of the room for the Seahawks. And you're kind of seeing this changing of the guard. JSN's not the most, I don't know, eager to be front and center like this. Like, I don't think that's been something he likes to do, but there are some interesting things that he said today. And I asked him the same question that I asked Jay Reed about, when you started OTAs, did you anticipate that the offense that you saw then was going to become this good this quickly? And here's what JSN said to that.
Honestly, I didn't know how the season would look. I know that we were going up against a really good defense, and I definitely trusted the process and believed in our guys, to do the job. When you look at the names and across the board on our offense, just showing up, day after day, I definitely had confidence. Didn't exactly know where we can take this thing, still don't, but excited for the ride.
All right. So I want to know if you guys see the same, like that look right there, looking up to the sky. To me, that was no. I did not anticipate that it was going to be this good. Because I'm telling you, it was rough. It was rough for OTAs, like all the way through pretty much. And, training camp, it picked up a little bit. I wish all of you could have seen OTAs. I wish all of you could have seen all of training camp, but all of OTAs and how much the offense was struggling at times, how much there were, turnovers and just like a lot of dump offs, nothing down the field. It just looked like remedial level offense. And to see that group that by the end of camp, if you remember, you watch my practice reports and stuff like that, I would talk to you guys and say, well, I can't remember the last time Sam Darnold turned the ball over. I just watched Sam Darnold and the offense destroy the defense in red zone over and over and over again, scoring pretty much every time. And how often during training camp and OTAs are those things mirages where you're like, okay, they looked really good. And then you get to the season and it's like, ooh, okay, that was not transferable. It's not very common for a group to start this new with this many new pieces. And even the first game of the season was not great, right? But since then, they have been absolute killers out there. And in fact, I want to pull up, I haven't done this yet, so I'm kind of curious. But if you do, they're already way up there in terms of, EPA per play, success rate, all that kind of stuff for the year. They're like the 9th highest at this point. If you just go from week 2 on, which honestly is like the first week they started their real offensive plan where they weren't doing all these other crazy things, they're the 6th highest EPA per play offense in the NFL. And they are the number 1 passing offense in the NFL from a drop back perspective. Their success rate from week 2 on is 61% when they're passing. That is insane. To give you an idea of like the span of teams, the bottom team in the NFL, the Browns, are almost half that, 32% drop back success rate. So it is a huge, huge difference. And like their rushing game, not quite there yet, but I think it's on the way. I really, really do. I'm curious to see how it ends up, but the passing game has been outstanding. All right, so let's keep going. There was another couple things from JSN I wanted to share with you guys. So not everybody realized this, but I did. JSN put on some muscle this offseason. It was pretty obvious to me. And I'd asked him about it during training camp, but I decided to come back to it now that he is basically establishing himself as one of the best receivers in football. So I asked him, now that you're into the season, how do you feel about the weight training work that you did? And are you seeing the impact of that? Here's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, goal of mine was to get bigger, faster, stronger, and that's how I feel. And I think you can see it in my play a little bit. So just gonna continue to take care of that and to grow. I feel like I got some years to continue that. So I'm just taking full advantage, and it's definitely helped me this year so far.
What did you do to do that? What did you change in your training?
I think I just spent more time on it, honestly. My vacation break wasn't as long as it was in the past years, and just getting in the gym, every single day, and just working literally every single day.
Where does
strength help you the most as a receiver?
Yeah, strength. To get faster, the strength and the power. It comes from that. It's kind of my engine. So, it's lower body. Even for like my arms. Being able to pump. Faster. I feel like it definitely, correlates. So, strength and speed. So, make sure to stay on top of that.
So good stuff from Jason there. And I don't think it's an accident that he makes the jump that he makes this year. I don't think it's all about necessarily strength training or anything he did physically in the offseason. Obviously, I think this offense is fitting him, the quarterback's fitting him. But I think you also have to give a little bit of credit to JSN for upping his game this offseason to kind of get ready to become what has been, a just absolute revelation at the receiver position this year. The last thing I asked that I wanted to share with you guys was, I've talked to JSN, I've talked to Cooper Kupp, I've talked to Jake, but I've talked to all these guys about in the receiver room about how much pride they take in run blocking and blocking in general and not just receiving. So I asked him, like, how much time do you guys spend in the receiver room actually talking about run blocking versus receiving? Because I think most fans just assume receivers are spending all their time focused on receiving and route running and all those things. So here is what he said about how much time they spent on run blocking. Your route running.
A lot. There's a time blocked off to where, we're going over the run plays, and Coach Frisman Jackson made a little cut up for us each week to make sure, we're on top of it, because it is very important, if we want to be successful, and we all know that. And that's something that we want to be great at. We want to be a great overall sound receiver room, and blocking is a part of that. So we take time, to make sure our keys are right and to know what it's going to look like, and then just execute from there.
So, that also came up when I talked to John Benton. And again, I'll share that interview with Patreon members, patreon.com/hawkblogger later this evening. So you can find it there. I'll play it for the rest of you another time. But the impact of this receiver room on pass protection, running, like all that, it does matter. And I think if you look at the explosive runs that the Seahawks have had in almost every one of those situations, you're going to see a receiver making a key block to enable that explosive run. So this is a huge part of what I think Cooper Kupp brings, not just because he's good at it, but the mentality and the pride that he takes in it. And when you have that veteran, that leader doing the dirty work like this and taking pride in it, there's just no choice but for other guys in the room to kind of fall in line and do the same thing. So I saw JSN digging out safeties last year. He's been willing to put in this. So it's not like he wasn't willing and now he is. But now I just think you've got a room that is really cohesive in that focus about being a really, really great run blocking unit, as well as being a great receiving group. All right. So if you guys have not taken the chance to download the Sleeper app, now would be a great time to do it. Check this out.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HAWKS. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Got a pretty sweet deal going on right now. You actually can get $20 without making a deposit for free. Plus, first-time users, use promo code HAWKS. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, so those are the things that really stood out to me in terms of what we got from the injury situation, where we're standing with the different players. I will, again, get that John Benton interview up there in just a little bit. And I'll be back tomorrow morning with Mike Sando. We'll talk about everything going on with the Seahawks and around the NFL. And we'll hopefully get some more injury news reports tomorrow. I'll talk to Mike McDonald. We'll get final injury designations and go from there. So until I see you all next time, have a great rest of your Thursday. I'm Brian M. Hauser. Take care.